Hello to everyone out there. Revolutionary greetings to all the people of the Southern Cameroons, to all the people of Amazonia. Today is the 16th of August in the year of our Lord 2019. And of course, my name is John Ba Akuro. I am coming today to raise two very important issues. One has to do with what we have all been talking about and expecting, negotiations to end the ongoing conflict between La République du Cameroun and the people of the Southern Cameroons. And the second has to do with back to school. But of course, you realize that the two are very interwoven. Now, let me begin with this first. I'd like us to note that the AGC of Christian Cardinal Tumi, that initiative, though, was brought up by Simon Munzo ab initio. And so that AGC is being authorized now by Mr. Paul Biya. And we all know that for several months, the government has been seriously hostile to the organization of that meeting. I would like to talk about that one in the second half of this video. And I want to bring out exactly why it is being authorized and the consequences that's going to have on the outcome of our liberation struggle. First, let us talk about back to school. My dear people, I think by now, we all know, we don't need to be told, that the only entity that is making it difficult, totally impossible for our children to go back to school is the government of La République du Cameroun. You don't need a soothsayer to tell you that. I like to repeat this over and over, that in 2017, the consortium in January had convened a meeting to be held on the 13th and 14th, basically to see how to call off the industrial action that was in place in order to give the government of La République some time to see if they could address the core grievances put forth, including at the time a return to the two-state federation as it was the case in 1961. But unfortunately, after the meetings that took place between the members of government of La République du Cameroun and the representatives of the consortium at Upstation, that meeting at which Comrade Fontem Neba came out and had a prayer session with the people when bike riders from downtown drove Upstation because they all heard information that the representatives were being held hostage and forced to take certain decisions. There was that prayer session. And at the end of that meeting, the consortium was hoping to hold a meeting over the weekend to take a certain decision to allow the government some time to look into this. But that night, something happened. When Comrade Tassan was on his way back home, somewhere around Tarikon, the police had laid ambush, waiting on him to kill him, to take his life. Unfortunately for them, someone advised him not to go back in the vehicle in which he had taken to the meeting, in his personal vehicle. And so he was accompanied, and then the bike riders decided to build a human shield around the car and to accompany him. So his car was still far behind when the police thought that the car that was ahead, which was his own car, that he was inside, and they opened fire. In the process, they shot 3 bike riders. One of them died at the hospital from excessive bleeding. And Comrade Tassan stayed the night at the hospital until about 3:30 a.m. when that gentleman died in his hands. That is how the consortium rather decided to call 2 more days of ghost town, the 16th and the 17th of January. And while that was going on, we were still even thinking of a compromise position when on that 17th of January, the government of La République du Cameroun decided to go rogue, started arresting people here and there, banned the consortium, banned the SCNC, and started a manhunt after our lives. From that moment to this day, the government of La République du Cameroon has used permanent repression. A lot of teachers that are supposed to be in schools teaching are in prisons here and there. A lot of children, students that are supposed to be preparing to go to school are in detention centers all over La République du Cameroon in thousands. A lot of parents that should be busy doing business and looking for money to prepare to send their children to school are now in the forests because over 350 villages and counting have been burnt down to dust. Even as we speak, even as La République du Cameroon is investing over 200 million CFA to see how to force a kind of political back to school, you can see that that army is still on the rampage, still creating IDPs, still chasing parents and children who are supposed to be students into the forest. That happened in Babanki, Tungo. That's in Big Babanki, just a few days ago. The village is down. All the people are in the bushes. The pictures are all over social media. In Banga Bakundu, they broke into houses, burned down some houses, even with young men who were sleeping in their houses. They were roasted to death. And when all this is happening, some people, they say it is the separatists, it is the pro-independence activists or leaders who do not want children to go back to school. How do you send children back to school when a lot of the schools have been transformed into military bases? Just 3 days ago, Mr. Paul Biya created a new section, a new branch of the Bataillon d'Intervention Rapide, the B, in Mabanda Kumba. What does that tell you? More war. So at the time, people were thinking that we are supposed to be talking peace. All what you are saying is more war. Yet you are saying children should go back to school. All because La République du Cameroon wants to give the impression to the international community that the situation is normalized, even at the expense of the lives of these children. And my embarrassment here, when I listen to a man of God like Monsignor George Nkuo in Kumbo preach and say this: the dragon, that monstrous sign of evil, has entered Kumbo and taken over many Christians. It is the evil dragon of violence, torture, kidnappings, and asking for unreasonable ransoms. It is a crime against humanity and a great exploitation that we use our children's right to education as bargain to push forward our political propaganda. This is from Bishop Nkuo. And I followed an excerpt of his preaching in which Bishop Nkuo tacitly says that the pro-independence people are using the children, are sacrificing the education of the children to foster their struggle when there are other options. This same Bishop Nkuo took part in authoring a document that showed that within a period of 2 months only, at least 400 people have been killed by the military of La République du Cameroon in Kumbo, that's in Bui County, where he is. I like to ask these questions to Bishop Nkuo. Bishop Nkuo, do you doubt who is burning down villages one after the other in Bui County? Of course, I can answer for you, because you took part in authoring that document, which clearly identifies the army of La République du Cameroon as doing so. Number 2, Bishop Nkuo, do you doubt who is killing people from village to village in Bui County? Do you doubt who has led all the carnage in Kuflof, in Melof, in Kingomen, in Oku? Do you doubt Bishop Nkuo? Of course, no, you don't, because you took part in authoring the document I am talking about. Bishop Nkuo, are these not the people you should be addressing as making it possible for our children to go back to school? I like to call that sermon that you dished out on Big Day Maria on the 15th of August 2019 as a mercantilist sermon, because I pointed this out when I brought out the minutes of the meeting that was held at the residence of Philemon Yang at the lakeside in Yaoundé, that the Catholic Church had been identified as a partner to play the role of enabler, to come and give the impression to the world that it is the people of the Southern Cameroons that are responsible for children not going to school, when of course you know the contrary. that a lot of money had been pumped into the Catholic Church so that the Catholic Church should support the government agenda of trying to stage this make-believe to the world that there is no need to go to the negotiation table anymore because things have come to normal. And to give the impression to the world that it is the people of the Southern Cameroons, the suffering masses, the dehumanized people, the battered people, the people whose food reserves are being taken out right before your eyes, Bishop Nkuo in Kumbo, and burnt down. That the same people you and your church have now received money to turn around and identify as the foe. You are a Bible-carrying preacher. You definitely know what it means to take sides with the oppressor against the suffering masses. You force me to remind our people of that adage that functioned so well in the colonial days, that religion is the opium of the masses. Today, I don't know where you keep your conscience when you will go to a murderous government that is slaughtering people right before your eyes, killing even priests. I followed Archbishop Cornelius Eshua on Dutch Vella. Explain how this young seminarian was killed before him, before his very eyes in Ngokotunja, for doing nothing. Today, you have the guts to walk onto the pulpit and try to give the impression that it is the suffering people of the Southern Cameroons, the victims, that are the cause of the carnage. I think at this point, I just say it is regrettable that the church prefers business, prefers mercantilism over the lives of the same people they are supposed to be protecting. Reverend Bishop George Nkuo, I'd like you to take some little time, watch the bishops and reverend fathers in Nigeria talk about the situation of the Biafrans. They don't sugarcoat anything. They speak truth to power. They say it as it is. They paint the situation of their suffering people without fear nor favor, because they have decided not to fear man. They have decided to fear only God that they serve. At least that is what the Bible says. It is regrettable that you have decided to desecrate the altar of God by going there to take sides with an oppressor over the oppressed people. It's a shame, and I regret it. And I move from you to yet another prelate of the same Catholic Church in Cameroon. This is Christian Cardinal Tumi. As I'm moving now to talk about the AGC, my dear people of the Southern Cameroons, take note that the government of President Paul Biya has finally authorized the holding of the Anglophone General Conference being organized by Christian Cardinal Tumi for federalist purposes. I had pointed out before that the government of La République du Cameroun was militantly opposed to the holding of the AGC because they were not sure of the outcome, because they feared that the good people, the suffering people of the Southern Cameroons, might go there in their numbers and take over the management of that conference and decide to do things right. And so the government had to hold it back until they were able to cut all the T's and dot all the I's and be sure that they will manipulate and determine the outcome to their advantage before it will be authorized. And that is exactly what has happened. Now, when the Swiss ambassador to Cameroon paid a visit to Mr. Paul Biya at the Unity Palace and proposed to him that his government will wish to play the role of mediator between the government of La République du Cameroun and the leaders of the Southern Cameroons, so that we have a comprehensive negotiated settlement that will touch on all sectors and guarantee permanent peace between La République du Cameroun and the people of the Southern Cameroons. Mr. Paul Biya gave his go-ahead. He did so in the hope that the Swiss side was never going to find any willing partner. True that a good lot of us have remained skeptical about the exact approach of the Swiss because we do not even trust the Swiss to do such mediation all alone. And we continue to insist that we want multiple mediation, but take it from me. Mr. Paul Biya never expected that we will say it openly from morning till evening that we are ready to go for negotiations without preconditions. Now that it became very clear to him that we are determined to go for negotiations without preconditions, Mr. Paul Biya is making a roundabout turn. He is finding it now completely difficult and unacceptable for him, for his personal reasons, to have to sit on the same table and negotiate the terms of our separation with the leaders of the liberation movements of the Southern Cameroons. That is why, despite a boost around the world in support of a Swiss-led mediation effort, Mr. Paul Biya has turned his back to it. Take note, Mr. Paul Biya has refused to give the mandate he promised to the Swiss that he was going to give for negotiations. He has refused to give. That is why, and this has been said over and over, I gave you this information from the meeting that was held in former Prime Minister Yang's residence, and also it is written in Le Jour, a French language newspaper in Cameroon. That was an interview with Honorable Fobichinda, who has spoken to a good lot of influential government ministers, and they told him that the government of La République du Cameroon is not ready to give their mandate to Switzerland for any negotiations, and are not ready for any such negotiations. That is why the fallback is a Tumi AGC, where they will pick people malleable to their positions, where they have a ready Catholic church, a Catholic mission ready to receive money at any time to betray the same people who put their trust in them. So they could be able to create an enabling environment to force through their model of a 10-state federation on the people of the Southern Cameroons. I don't want to push in a personal opinion on this, but I want to tell our people, the time for us to get more and more vigilant is now. The church has proven loud and clear that they have chosen to stand with the oppressor against the oppressed people. We are on our own. But I'd like you to note, the church is not God. The church is called the Church of God, but it is not God. It is only the Church of God. God has ordained our struggle. We must continue to put our trust in that God, continue to pray to him directly, and continue to look up to him for guidance. We shall not fail in this struggle. All we need to do is make sure we continue to work solidly together, because there's a lot that unites us than divides us. We have differences. We have points of discord. We have issues where we may not necessarily agree, but the central and most important issue, which is the total self-determination of the Southern Cameroons, unites all of us. And we can work around that and make sure we pool our forces and resources together to guarantee that which belongs to us. Our position, the liberation movements as a whole, has been clear. We want our children in school. We have always wanted our children in school. One of the reasons we are fighting is to make sure we have a sound educational curriculum that makes our children job creators and not permanent dependents, and not to remain the kind of cycle of poverty, which is even the public policy in La République du Cameroon, to the point where people are ready to auction their souls for 2 bottles of beer. We have always wanted our children in school. Even now, we want them in school. But our children will not go to school with guns hovering over their heads, with bullets flying everywhere, with soldiers trigger happy and ready to gun them down at will, to do whatsoever they want with our children. These children, first of all, deserve to be alive. Take note. Look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The right to education is right number 25, if not even 26. But the right to life is the first. So let us address all the other rights on this list, and we shall get to the right to education. That is why we say, you, the Catholic Church that really wants children to be back in school, cause La République du Cameroon to come quickly to the negotiation table. We are ready and waiting. Let us have a comprehensive arrangement that guarantees that our children will go to school when there will be nobody carrying arms all over the streets and ready to shoot and kill with impunity at any moment. The negotiation table presents the best opportunity to address all of these problems in a holistic manner. Why do you want shortcuts? Shortcuts that will lead again to the loss of lives. My dear people, we have always stood for our children to go to school. That is why we have also said in the interim, while the Republic du Cameroon drags its feet to come to the negotiation table, where we are already waiting, let the United Nations and the superpowers do what they did even in Côte d'Ivoire when it was not two separate entities. They created a buffer zone between the warring parties in Côte d'Ivoire so that on both sides, children could go to school. Create a buffer zone between La République du Cameroun and the Southern Cameroons. Let them take their entire administration across the Mongo. We stay and they stay. While a solution is being sought, our children will happily go back to school. We are already working hard, doing everything it takes to make sure that our teachers, who themselves are part of the struggle and are so volunteering, will put in every approach to make sure these children catch up on lost time. That is all we seek. That is all we want. A sane environment for our children to go to school. I am militantly against violence. I have been against the use of arms right from day one. That is why I still keep insisting to this date that we must do everything possible to ensure that while our children will eventually go to school, they should go to school in a safe and free environment. The governor, the colonial governor of the Northern Zone, cannot be traveling in armored cars, clad with bulletproofs all over him, guarded by battalions upon battalions of soldiers, to go out there and tell people, send your children to school. Are all the children going to be given bulletproofs? Are all the children going to be studying and moving around in armored cars? Are all the children going to benefit of battalions upon battalions of military protection? And from who? From the same military that kills them at will, at random, and with impunity? Let us give all of this kind of gesticulative talks a rethink. I like the Catholic mission in the Southern Cameroons to know that history is taking notes and posterity will judge all these actors that have decided to take sides with the oppressor rather than to stand and speak the truth that favors the suffering masses, the people God called them to serve. So God be the glory.